him. He said that was the last time he saw her, but then she turns up dead. It was later determined that her boyfriend hadn't been the one to kill her. Instead, it was Barbara's co-worker, Michael Ian Thornton. Now, I don't know the ins and outs on how it all went down or how they found out that it was the co-worker, but at some point he was found with blood stains on his pants, and whatever alibi he gave turned out to be a lie. Despite any of that though, he was still found not guilty due to lack of evidence. Okay, so you might be thinking, well dang, this Thornton person is obviously a serial killer. He's going by different names, targeting young women that he finds alone at night, and he keeps getting away with it. Get this though these two cases are super similar and sound like maybe there's just a serial killer on the loose, these murders actually happened 157 years apart. Mary passed away May 27th, 1817, and Barbara passed away May 27th, 1975. Both of them were 20 years old. They were both headed home after a night of dancing, and they were both somehow attacked. Both found in water at the Pipe Hayes Park in Birmingham, England. Both had men with the last name Thornton suspected of murdering them. Both Thornton men being found not guilty, and now both of their cases have gone cold. And listen to this. It is said that days before they were murdered, both Mary and Barbara spoke about having this very uneasy feeling in their gut. They both felt like something bad was going to happen, and it did. Isn't that so weird? All these similarities, yet these two cases are completely unrelated. Just how? When I read about this, I was blown away. I'm like, what the heck? 157 years apart though. Let me know what you think about this. I thought that was kind of creepy. So next is a bit of a conspiracy theory. It was actually my first time ever hearing about this theory, but there was a whole thing about why grape ice cream doesn't exist. I mean, we have grape everything just about. Grape candy, grape soda, grape popsicles, grapes, but grape ice cream you never see. Now, there was a theory that the popular ice cream company Ben & Jerry's, they actually did create grape ice cream once, and while letting some of their customers try it, one of the customers loved it so much that he let his precious dog try some, and the dog died because grapes are actually toxic to dogs, which I didn't know. They said that the dog died and the FDA banned the production of grape ice cream altogether. But people were like, wait, chocolate is toxic to dogs, but we still have it. So are avocados, onions, garlic, soda, and a lot of other things, but we still have those too. People just couldn't believe that we were missing out on grape ice cream for that reason. I mean, couldn't we just simply not give it to our pets, you know? That theory was fun, with the exception of the dog passing away and all, but that theory just wasn't true. The Ben & Jerry's company came forth and they gave the real reason why grape ice cream is not a thing. Basically, what they said was, grape ice cream can definitely be done, but it's kind of hard to do. How they explained it was that grapes have a very high water content, so when you go to like puree the grapes to go inside the ice cream, you come up with mostly water, especially when you're doing it in large batches like they would have to. And as a result of it being mostly water, you would end up with little pebbles of ice throughout the ice cream. Who wants ice pebbles in their ice cream? It's supposed to be all smooth and creamy, not icy. But you know, the people had to clap back on that one. They were like, well, cherries have a high water content as well, but Cherry Garcia is one of your most popular flavors. Explain that. see ya, alright? Plus, who's even checking for grape ice cream anyway? I mean, I totally get it. They're gonna do what they have to do to push out what's making them money. But yeah, I thought that was a fun little theory. There are actually smaller ice cream shops and companies that have grape ice cream though. I guess it's a bit easier for them to produce because they're able to do it in smaller batches, you know? But yeah, so can we talk about Stevie Wonder for a second? If you're not sure who Stevie Wonder is, he's a popular singer, musician here in the US. Due to what this theory is about, I want to let you know that he is blind, just in case you weren't aware. Okay, so throughout the years, people have speculated that Stevie Wonder fakes his blindness. I feel like this is mainly due to, number one, a video that shows Stevie Wonder reaching out to catch a microphone stand that is falling over on stage. Paul McCartney had bumped into the microphone as he was running across the stage past Stevie. And as the microphone is falling, Stevie seems to see it and he reaches out to catch it as it's falling. How could you do this if you're blind, right? And two, apparently he's been known to touch people on the shoulder or reach out and touch other performers as they're on stage together. And there have been other celebrities who claim that they don't believe that Stevie Wonder is blind either. One of the most popular being Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq said that one day while he was in a building that he lived in, he was riding an elevator when none other than Stevie Wonder hops on the elevator with him by himself. He said that as Stevie was walking in, he said, "What's up, Shaq?" Then he proceeded to press the button for the floor he wanted to go to. When they got to that floor, Stevie got out the elevator and went to the room he was staying in. That is really hard for me to believe, but hey, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I didn't see anything. At the same time, I also don't know why Shaq would lie about anything like that anyway, so who knows if it really happened. But yeah, different people have different reasons for believing that Stevie Wonder is really not blind. But I was reading something the other day that opened my eyes. Absolutely no pun intended. Oh my gosh. All our lives we've heard that Stevie Wonder is blind, but whoever said that he was completely blind? There is a such thing as legal blindness, where you still have vision in a sense, but even with glasses and contacts, your vision is still so bad to the point where you're considered blind legally. Basically, the post I was reading said that it is very likely that Stevie Wonder is not completely blind, but rather just legally blind. Due to his retina being detached as a newborn baby, people believe that his vision may be very, very dim and blurry to the point where he can't distinguish this from that. What he may see is more like dark, moving shadows in a way. So I guess when something is close enough to him, he's able to kinda see that it's there and that it's moving without knowing what it is at all. It's all a blur, which makes sense as to why he would be able to reach out and touch someone who's near him or catch an object that he sees moving after hearing Paul McCartney bump his noggin on it as he was running by. Now, as far as getting on the elevator alone and walking to his room, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that one out. As far as the elevator buttons, Braille exists, and how would he know Shaq is Shaq after getting on the elevator? Maybe he knew Shaq lived in the building, and upon seeing this very tall, blurry object in the elevator, he figured a person that huge could only be Shaq. I don't know, I'm just talking, but yeah, I don't know about you, but I love this theory so much. I always thought Stevie was just so sweet, and I never wanted to believe that he was faking his blindness. Honestly, I don't know how I never thought of it, but it makes perfect sense that he would be legally blind, not just completely blind. What do you think? Okay, so this case threw me for a loop quite a few times as I was reading about it. I mean, shocking stuff just kept happening and kept happening, all in this one case. Oh my goodness. It's a very tragic and graphic story, just to let you know before I get started. Okay, so Peter and Joan Borgo were a married couple who lived in Bethelem, New York. Peter worked as a court clerk and his wife worked as a children's speech pathologist. They had two sons, Jonathan and Christopher, who they loved dearly, with Christopher being that child who caused them a little bit of trouble here and there, you know. By a little bit, I mean a lot. For instance, once upon a time, while Christopher was attending University of Rochester in New York, he said that his professor had lost his final exam that he had submitted, which caused him to basically flunk and be kicked out of the school, right? So he decided to enroll in Hudson Valley Community College instead, but by the fall, the professor at University of Rochester had found the exam that Christopher had taken. So he was able to come back to the school with the school paying his full tuition due to their mistake. Perfect, except that's not what happened. What happened was Christopher just plain got kicked out of University of Rochester due to his failing grades. Shortly after, he forged his dad's signature as a co-signer for a $31,000 loan. Then he forged a transcript from Hudson Valley Community College, and he used the money in the transcript to get back into Rochester. He also bought a yellow Jeep Wrangler while he was at it, because that's just what you do, you know. Christopher is something else, right? Anyway, back to the story. One day in November 2004, Peter, the dad, he didn't show up for work at his job. So an officer was sent over to his house to make sure he was okay, because that was unlike him. When the officer got there, he found Peter in the foyer of his home, bludgeoned to death. Joan, his wife, was found in the house as well. She was found in the bed, and she had been bludgeoned as well. Thankfully, she was still alive, though. But her injuries were horrible. It's so heartbreaking. A whole section of her skull was missing, and her left eye was missing as well. Turns out they had actually been attacked with an axe that was found in their house too. Police also found that the phone lines had been cut and the alarm system had been disabled. And before Joan was put into a medically induced coma, police tried to ask her different questions to see if she knew who had attacked them. She shook her head no, as they were calling out different names, but before she went out, they happened to say Christopher's name, her youngest son. She nodded yes. When Peter and Joan were discovered, Christopher was 4 hours away at college. He said he had been there all night in his dorm sleeping. Also, when the mom came out of the coma, she said that she couldn't remember anything from that night at all, but it absolutely wasn't her son who did that to her and her husband. By that time, it was really too late. They had already found out who the attacker and killer was. They had investigated and gotten evidence from security cameras, college students, and toll booth collectors. They were able Christopher Borgo was their person. So let me tell you what actually happened. Christopher and his parents had actually been arguing a bit regarding his grades and all that he had done as far as the forgery and other stuff he had done. Then, on the night of November 14th, Christopher kinda snapped. He drove 4 hours to his parents' house, disabled the alarm, snuck in, took an axe that belonged to the family, went into his parents' room, and he proceeded to strike Peter in the head 16 times with the axe. I'm not exactly sure how many times he struck Joan, but it was still pretty bad. After attacking them, Christopher drove the 4 hours back to school, and that's when Peter didn't show up for work and officers came and found him, right? Remember I said Peter was found in the foyer of his home, but he and his wife were actually in bed when the attack happened, so how did he end up in the foyer? Listen to this. Somehow, the next morning after the attack happened, after being struck 16 times in the head with an axe, despite all of the damage that had been done to him, Peter still woke up the next morning. He not only woke up, but he actually began doing his regular morning routine. Now, before I get into that, keep in mind that there was a lot of damage done to Peter. So, as he's doing these things, he's pretty much in a daze. Like, he's doing things that make sense, but he's not really aware of any of it at all. He isn't aware of what happened last night. He isn't aware that he's even hurt right now. But he still manages to get out of bed, go to the bathroom sink, pack his lunch for work, write a check for a parking ticket that Christopher had recently gotten. He tried to load dishes into the dishwasher. He went outside and got his newspaper. When he went outside, he actually ended up locking himself out, but he was even able to find the spare key to unlock the door and go back inside. And that's when he collapsed right there in the foyer of his home. As a result of all the moving he was doing, there were trails of blood all over the house. That's how they were able to kind of see exactly what he had been doing that morning. That is so amazing to me. It's sad, don't get me wrong, but just thinking about the human body and what it can do, even when it doesn't seem like it should be possible, it's just unbelievable. Christopher was convicted for the murder of his father and the attempted murder of his mother. He was sentenced to 50 years to life for this, but he still claims that he's innocent and that the real killer is still out there somewhere. But they'll likely never be caught because everyone thinks he did it. And his mother, who sadly he became very badly disfigured afterward, she still stands behind him 100% to this day. She insists that her son is innocent despite the evidence of it all. My mind is just blown over this whole thing. Like, wow. Okay, let's talk about the very strange death of Christina Kettlewell, the 8-day bride. So, back in 1947, Christina was 22 years old, living in Ontario, Canada. She had just recently gotten married to her boyfriend of a few years, Jack. He was a 26-year-old war veteran. Now, Christina's family, they were actually a bit concerned about her marriage to Jack. They didn't really approve of their relationship to begin with. This was mainly because Jack had this best friend, best buddy, best pal from childhood, right? He was an immigrant from Italy. His name was Ronald, and he was a professional dancer. Now, Christina, Jack, and Ronald would spend a lot of time together. The three of them together. Most sources say that they spent an inordinate amount of time together. It was like Christina and Jack inaccessible by boat. While they were there, Christina allegedly started acting a bit strange all of a sudden. Apparently, she would go into these crying spells a lot. Other times, she would just kind of be in a daze. They also say that she had spoken to Ronald about Jack during this time, asking him questions like whether or not he felt like Jack really loved her. Everything just turned weird, like she was going through something all of a sudden. Well, on May 20th, we're still at the cottage, but Christina is nowhere to be found. And on this same day, the cottage also mysteriously catches on fire. Ronald said that when he got back from wherever he had been and found the cottage on fire, he ran inside and he found Jack, who was very disoriented and had some type of head injury. He said he tried looking for Christina, but he wasn't able to find her. So he dragged Jack out of the cottage, put him on the boat, took him to the mainland, and then he drove him to the hospital and called the police. Well, later that day, the owner of a boathouse near Ronald's cottage found Christina. She was face down in 9 inches of water, 150 feet away from Ronald's cottage. She was deceased just 8 days after marrying the love of her life. She didn't have any burns on her body or any markings indicating that something violent happened to her. Her autopsy report would show that she actually had codeine in her stomach, but her cause of death was drowning. But listen to this. Earlier that day, while people were at the cottage running back and forth, fetching water to put the fire out, they said that Christina's body was not in the water at that point. Otherwise, they would have seen her. So just what happened? When? Where? Why? How? Who? It all sounds suspicious to authorities, right? Well, Jack, Ronald, and several other people were questioned, not necessarily about Christina's death, but the whole thing as a whole. Jack, who had been treated for his burns, his head injury, shock, and apparent drugging, he said that he wasn't able to remember anything past 11 a.m. Ronald pretty much gave the story that I just told you about him coming and finding the cottage on fire and whatnot. Well, a case was opened to basically find out whether or not there was any foul play involved in Christina's death, but based on the evidence given, the jury wasn't able to find out exactly what happened. With there being no evidence that Jack, Ronald, or anyone else did something to Christina, they were all afraid to go, and that was just that. We still don't know what happened that day, and we may never know, but people have many theories as to what they think might have happened that day. Some people believe Christina was suicidal and took her own life. To back this up, there were suicide notes involved. The first one was basically written to Ronald about how she was unsure about the proposal to Jack, and that taking her life would be the best way out. In another note, also written to Ronald, she talked about taking not just her own life, but Jack's as well, because she didn't want anyone else to have him after taking her own life. Then there was another note. This one was addressed to the owner of a house that she and Jack stayed in for a while. This note said, "Ronnie is in the boat outside somewhere. By the time he gets back, everything will all be over with. He must have been afraid something would happen because he is staying an extra day to make sure we go back to Toronto with him." It was confirmed that each letter was written by Christina herself. The crazy thing is that Ronald had actually received